This video is produced by Symfony Sweden. You will find more videos and information about our meetups at www.symfony.se.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm gonna to talk now is very much related to what not everybody is doing, but to my mind we should be doing it more. First of all, a bit myself, kind of background, who am I and what I'm doing for living. So currently I'm working as tech lead and sometimes doing some web development at zuzu.com. And as Adam explained, this is e-commerce solution. We currently have only one website, which is zuzu.com. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Symfony too, and been doing PHP development for many years. But what is this talk about is about different ways how people can and should deploy and build applications. As all of us are probably on different level of this subject, I will be talking about not about really hardcore stuff, but about introduction level or medium level stuff. So as most of us understand, doing development during the whole day, the whole week, that's fine. Sometimes we want to show what we did, and for that one we have a lot of questions and a lot of problems how to actually present this code to, how present the result of our work to the product owner or QA department, if you have luxury to have one. We don't. So in our environment, whatever we develop, we should be pushing forward and actually show to Adam or to some other people involved. So I guess all of us understand what we do on our local machines, but we don't know what to actually do with the code which we actually wrote. So every time when we finish some feature or finish, let's say, a new module, or you just want to do it once a day, once a week, you have to build your project. Then somehow, in most companies nowadays, you run some sort of continuous integration process, which actually verify that this code is actually feasible to put further, and then you deploy it. This you can do for really 10 times a day. And the thing which is pretty not common yet, I would say, is that a lot of these actions related to building and then testing and then deployment is not automated. So the thing which, I already answered my question on the next slide, but the answer is actually to automate this process. So during automation we automatically get a lot of benefits. Like, certainly we have a clear understanding of quality of project, since the project is built and prepared, and unit tests or functional tests are running on top of it. So, but the biggest benefit in all of this is that we actually establish routine procedures for converting projects from the code to something what non-technical person can see and evaluate. So we establish a routine process which team can rely on. During the process of building and deployment, there are plenty of things which you don't have to spend any time and think about how you actually, not how, but what exactly you are doing. So these things should be automated. And as we already know, that running tests is a good practice, prepare an environment in order to be on the certain stage is also a good practice. So we really have to automate, I would say, everything what is possible. But unfortunately, sometimes it's just impossible. But using tools like Puppet, Chef, and Ansible, and few others, kind of spent half day learning into all of this, will give a really big benefit. So we personally, rely on bash scripting in most of the places, and it does work pretty well. Okay, so now the question is actually how you do the build. Build is something what you can execute on different environments. You can run it on your local Macintosh, on remote Linux server, on Windows if you're unlucky, but that's not the point. There is no universal solution how to build, because how to build is totally dependent on what exactly you are developing. Like in our situation, we are developing a Symfony application, so it's kind of, it can be different if you are using, let's say, something else. Generic PHP will be totally different. So it's totally dependent on what exactly you're going to build. And the most relevant question in this subject is why do you need to automate things? If you're developing your code on your local environment, you're using your own set of tools. That's probably fine for you. But if you ask a friend of you who's running Windows, then there is a big chance that he will run commands in a little bit another sequence. So that's important that you try to run this project into environment which is as similar as possible to production. Because if you have any differences between let's say missing modules, missing dependencies, which you think comes by default, unfortunately it's not. And this is a pretty often situation. So independently of what you are actually developing on, most likely there will be some tasks which you execute in a certain order. Like, all of us understand that we're using some Git or SVN or whatever. Then we somehow bootstrap, configure it, update database schema, run some asset management, and then we usually warm up cache and clear it. On most Symfony projects, or I think on most other projects as well, this is 90% of tasks which are going to be executed. Building and deployment is not very much different from building and deployment in PHP or in Perl or on any other systems. So bash scripting, to my mind, is still taking place number one, mainly by historical reasons. So that's fine that there is Apache Ant, but bash scripting is something what people think is cool, and they can run it on their own machine, and not everybody actually know that they can run Ant on their own machine as well. You know, it's not something hard. It's just Java, which you install and run it. Thing is PHP clone of Apache Ant, but Capistrano is Fabric, appeared from different communities. Capistrano is Ruby based, and Fabric is very similar clone, but Python based. In fact, there are, I guess, more than 50 different tools. If you are doing just PHP development, I would not recommend to look on anything else, because they are very much similar. Another trend which is actually appearing during the last several years is that platform as a service is getting higher and higher, and we hear about it a lot. POS is something what is not applicable, to my mind, to many projects, in particular smaller sizes. I mean, in small size, you don't want to spend a bunch of money to pay for something cool where you can deploy with one click. You can replace it with similar solution like Bash scripting or Apache Ant in much shorter time. Benefit of POS is that you don't have to configure it. You don't have to play with various PHP ini settings by default, because it's already done for you. As we probably know, that there are a lot of different POS providers. Yeah, a lot of them have support for different programming languages or different frameworks, but some of them add support to PHP just lately, like Google App Engine has added support, but it's not so common used. In this list, to my mind, AWS Elastic Beanstalk is one of most promising, but it's really really not made for very advanced deployment. You can define in any of these POS solutions, you can define config file, which will be fetched from your Git, and it just goes through the whole file and somehow deployed. You define the sequence. In all of these systems, the flow is the same. You get source code, it download this JSON file or config YAML or whatever, and it makes the whole list of actions. Nothing special. The difference between all of popular kind of systems which you can run yourself is that you have different freedom of what you can do. In Bash scripting, as we know, you should be creative yourself. And if you make some problems, then it's your problem, then you will have to fix it. In comparison, if you make some problems in Apache Ant script, then it will be Ant who is complaining that, hey, you made some problems. So there is some sort of benefit. Jenkins CI together with Apache Ant is, to my mind, the most popular solution, which is very widely used, and thankfully to Sebastian, who actually made this Jenkins PHP templates, and people started to figure out that, hey, actually my code style can be verified, actually my test can be automated, or my PHP code styling can be fixed for me, or a lot of things are already made. So I really recommend to go to jenkinsphp.org and see what are actually available. But today, as we are all here going to talk about Symfony stuff, then let's talk about Capistrano. Capistrano Capistrano initially was made for deploying Rails application, but it can be very easily modified to deploy whatever you want. With Symfony, we're using Capistrano, which is already a collection of ready-made recipes for us. And for other languages or other frameworks, there are also Capistrano recipes. So, Capistrano itself is extremely well documented, and as you see on the previous slide, you will find 90% of information. So we'll not go there how to install it, and it's all well written there. The tricks for PHP developers usually is that they don't know Ruby syntax. I don't know it so well as well, but every time when I hear that people say, I would like to use Capistrano, but I don't know Ruby, they, after half hour, gone to Google and search for Capistrano in PHP. There are several solutions, and people are actually creating them, but they're pretty not usable, I would say, because Capistrano itself as a fabric has a pretty long history. It has a lot of modules, it's pretty stable, and it does what it should. So in the next 4 slides I'm gonna to show you some shortcuts which in most situations you will just have to copy paste into your projects if you don't know Ruby. And hopefully you will use Symfony and Capistrano more, because it's a good tool for this purpose. So if you're using deployment process which is running on your computer, you can send a public notification to HipChat or FlowDog. There are gems for Ruby, for Capistrano, which you can install and be able to interact. So HipChat is the one which we are using. So we every time when developer deploys something, he put automatic post to the public chat where he says like, I'm deploying this branch to this server, and we know. And then when deployment is done, then it says deployment successful. It's good for everybody to just be informed. The same thing with New Relic, and actually it was Magnus who submitted this recipe for New Relic, and yeah, it's still working. So, but this code was not mentioned there, so I added it here, because not always you want to let everybody know that, hey, you just did deployment. You know, sometimes for some environments you don't want everybody to know this. This is yeah, the code which is here is something what I created very recently, so it may be not well formatted. But the idea is that during the whole sequence of command, when you execute Symfony, my experience, in like 30% of deployment, there is a problem, and Capistrano just return you nothing. So just nothing, and you don't know what is it. So what this is trying to do is that it actually tried to boot application after Composer install, and if there was an error, in 99% cases it's missing parameters YAML value, then it just show you that, hey, this parameter is not configured, so please do something. And yeah, it helps a lot for us. Another thing is also related to Symfony is that during deployment you probably want your assets to be updated, and modifying config YAML or parameters YAML and increase assets version can be automated. So there is a bundle for it, and this code does the trick. And the last one is about you may have several database servers, or you may have several web servers where you are deploying, but just on some of them you want to do some commands. For example, in this code you want to run migrations only on one. So the trick is to add primary equal true to one of the server where you want it to run. It's not documented, so all of these 4 things I added here, and I'm gonna to put it into cookbook on Symfony site so that more people actually use it. And yeah, if you have any Symfony question, the really best resources is Stack Overflow. I sometimes answer questions there because it's interesting for me, and yeah, I see that people are using it for discussion much more actively than any other resources. And if you don't like command line interface but you still want to do some deployment, there is Deploy HQ, which is pretty straightforward way with some limitations, but it fits extremely well for very small projects. It gives your customer or your system owner graphic user interface where he can click 1, 2, 3 and deployment completed. Adam loves it. He's the one who's doing deployment and he loves it. No, production, of course, we want to make sure that we understand what we're doing and not in the middle of the night give the whole access. So that's all from me, guys. Any questions?
I've been looking at Capistrano before, and I saw those roles. You have web role and you have like an app role. Why do you need different roles?
Recipes which you include, they may rely on different roles. The Capistrano itself is relying on web because it should know which server it should SSH to, and it should know where database migration or database backup it should be doing from. App is also used by, as far as I remember, a static dump. So if you're deploying to, let's say, normal PHP application, you don't have to define all of this. You have to make sure that these roles are in sync with what recipe is using.
So, for example, if you have a CDN with all your assets, you can have a different server, or...
Now, first of all, you're not deploying to CDN. You're deploying to another server, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's not the task for Capistrano to do copy files, right? It's task for Grunt.
Yeah.
So Grunt.
I just wondered what the app role, and there's, when I download Capistrano, there's also a third role. That's something else. I don't even remember.
You can define whatever you want.
Oh, so you can just
Web,
remove them too.
Yeah, you can remove, you can run, and then it will say that, hey, I don't know, what is it? So, yeah. For Symfony, these 3 roles are required. Yeah.
So if you are using an indexing system like a Solar, are you able to run scripts to reindexing the whole content, or is it possible?
Yeah, on Zuzu we have Lucene, and periodically on certain commands we have to reindex it. So one way is to I can show it to you. Yeah, similar to this one is that you modify run, try sudo, and then do whatever you want in bash script. Or like in this case, you rely on Symfony console and you run whatever
PHP comments or whatever.
Any commands. Just make sure that the command which you are going to run is executable by PHP user.
Perfect. Okay.
You can do, for some environments there is a try sudo, which is in this case is false, because we don't want to do any crazy action as sudo. And the whole server is operating with limited user, which can do, in your case, Solar update indexing. Yeah.
Great, awesome, thank you.
Have you looked into the PHP competitor Rocketeer? Something?
Rocket what?
Rocketeer, a PHP clone of Capistrano.
Yeah, that one I forgot this name. Right. Not very much, really. The thing is that a few days ago, when I verified what is actually available, Fabric and Capistrano had like several thousands of watchers, and any other PHP clone, like the one you say, and some other, I just skip them. They're very, very amateur, really. I mean, you can find something, but what you do is run commands in sequence. Language, as I tried to show, is not a problem. Ruby is installed on any system. If not, you can install it in one command. So it's not a limitation anymore. The challenge here is to actually be able to run sequence command in predictable order. That's all. One thing which is strange to my mind in Capistrano, as well as in any other system, is that before you are running it to production, before you deploying code to production, you really have to verify that Capistrano itself is not changed. Because Capistrano, as example of open source project, can change some recipes order. And you think that cache warm-up will run after some command, and you rely on it. But in fact, like 1 month ago, it has changed. And then you figure out why it was always working. And then you have to run cap -d to go through debug mode and actually verify which command actually made the failure.
Just as an added tip regarding versioning on Capistrano, if you use bundler, then you can use a gem file and pin the version of both Capistrano and Capistrano,
Yeah.
and that won't be a problem.
But
So that's pretty nice.
I usually like to stay on the edge, so I update it quite often. But when I forget to update it, then I see, oh my god.
Yeah.
And not all developers are updating Capistrano locally so often. So when they do development, it can fail for them.
Yeah, but if you use bundler, you can pin the version, so
Yeah.
it's the same version for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's the
cool.
advantage. But of course, you don't get the newest and
Yeah.
greatest features.
Yeah.
How do you, I don't know if you can show me right now, but how does your folder structure look in your repositories? Do you keep like Capistrano and Capistrano in the repository, I guess?
Yeah. Deployment is part of your project. So that if you change something in the project, then most likely you will have to modify some deployment procedure. And that's very important that you have it in one piece. So the default is to have cap file in the root and up config deploy folder there. I can show you. It's nothing special. Here is it. You have cap file here, which is default one. Do you see it?
Yeah.
What? How?
I usually do command plus.
Yeah, but this is PHP store.
Yeah.
Okay. Like this? No. Okay, but anyway, this is default cap file. You almost never have to modify it. Almost, I'm saying, because sometimes you want to put tasks there which will be absolutely global for absolutely everything. Yeah, hard to find a real example, but sometimes I saw it. And then deploy RB, which has nothing special. I mean, I showed parts which are interesting here already. And then you have a lot of different configurations and a lot of different RB files. Since you
Do you have Symfony in its own folder? Or how do you...
Symfony vendors. This is normal Symfony layout.
Okay.
It's not customized in any way. So what we have here is deploy RB script, which defines stages in this location.
Also, you have the config folder, config deploy.
Config deploy contains files which are gonna to be included.
So it's mixed in with your project.
Yeah. So that's what I'm telling. That if you are modifying something and you introduce some solar system which has to be renewed or warm up, then this is the time for you to modify it.
But but you don't want your Capistrano files on the production server, right?
Why not?
I don't know. That's not how I would do it. I don't know.
Oh, if you want to do
if you can
something,
reach the file somehow, it's not good. I don't know. Maybe you don't have passwords in your.
they're not secret. There is no password mentioned in any files except parameters YAML.
Yeah.
So deploy RB is totally safe to distribute. You will not
just
be
have SSH keys or
nothing like this. It says this.
oh yeah, okay.
So
Everything is from the local computer and forwarding.
Yeah. One of interesting thing which I didn't mention here is that we have multiple stages how we are deploying. So demo 1, demo 2, and staging and production. So demo 1, demo 2, and staging, this is where we deploy whatever we want from our machine. For example, you can deploy it. Oh, let's see. So what you can do, I don't know if you see it. This is a default command if you want to deploy to production, okay?
Command plus no.
Yeah, now it works. Yeah, and this now works here. In PHP Storm? In PHP Storm it doesn't work. No. Yeah, cool.
Oh, yeah, it works.
Wow. Oh, cool.
You can also do shift and just type presentation. I think they have presentation mode.
No, this didn't help. I tried it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Okay, so what you have here is, do you see this line now? Well, yeah, like this. So this is a default command how we are deploying to production. It's nothing special. It's well written in all documents. When we are deploying to staging, sometimes we want to deploy some concrete commit or concrete branch name. So then we write staging deploy -b, and then branch name will be, I don't know, zoo 123. This is a branch name which we want to deploy to staging server. So yeah.
You use like tags for your production deploys?
Not really. We don't need to have tags for production deployment, because when we deploy, we see commit, and that's enough for us. I can show you something more. So this is how deploy HQ works. We have multiple projects where we deploy things, and on staging, this is the tool where, I don't know if you see it well, this is a tool where all developers have access to. So once they finish some feature, they can go there and actually deploy it. So you click just deploy now, you define which commits, which server to deploy, and that's it. As I said, this tool gives pretty good overview for people without technical experience what is going on. Yeah.
We recently bought Codebase HQ, and Deploy HQ is bundled with it.
Yeah.
So we're looking into that too right now.
But I will not say anything good about Deploy HQ after half or after 1 year of using it. Initially, it was working fine. When project gets bigger and bigger, you have to you have to apply some magic, which is not what you want to think about. One limitation of Deploy HQ, don't tell them, please, but they are not copying files in a bulk. If you have, let's say, 30,000 files, they will copy it one by one, and this takes 80% of time. Yeah, I find some workaround about it to make a local copy on that server and then do rsync between, but it's such a hack which really. If you want to have a system where you have a control of which version is deployed, there are several of them already available from Etsy, Deployer, but the best one, which I think is applicable for really old situations, is like Rundeck, is where you have a scriptable environment for yourself and for your team. Let's say you want Adam to be able to deploy to this server by clicking one button. You can program it in a pretty straightforward way. So, but Deploy HQ works, for us so far.
Maybe you can. So many questions. Maybe you can explain how Capistrano works, because we were talking about it on the train. Because it does not like take all the. Maybe you can explain the process. Like how does it check out the files to the server?
Yeah. So the first thing which is interesting is this one. Deploy via. There are one of the common way to deploy is that developer or some system initiate the deployment. Another way is to ask GitHub to actually send hook or call hook, and it will does it for you. Pass usually does this way. If you are talking about the way how Capistrano actually transfer files from your computer, or not from your computer, how you initiate the deployment so that deployment actually happens somewhere remotely, there are multiple ways. But one of the most common is that there are two ways, but I don't remember which one we are using. So, so one way is that there is already a complete Git clone copy on the remote server, and that remote server already have access to the Git repository. So when you say please deploy, it will figure out that I have to update just 2 files and that's it, and then it will transfer these files. It works pretty well when you're deploying from your computer to remote server since you're on different machines. The problem and the one of limitation of Capistrano is that it simply has not been designed to work when you are deploying from one machine to the same machine. Let's say, yeah, but don't laugh. You really need it. If you have one big server where you want to host, let's say in our case, we host several versions of the same site, because one developer can present it on one host with totally limited environment and another on the same machine. I mean, we have 8 cores there and a lot of RAM. Why should we not use it? So the way how we do this is that using deploy HQ, we run command which actually update that remote copy in the way how deploy HQ usually does, by stupid copy one file to another. It is a single process, the single way how deploy HQ can do. And once that location is full of changes, then you actually run Capistrano, but you run you run Capistrano to deploy locally from one location to another location. And this works pretty well and pretty fast, because you can specify to Capistrano that don't copy files, but please start them and copy once. This is default behavior on Capistrano. The trick there is to actually emulate SSH activity, that you log in SSH from your computer to your own computer. This is how Capistrano works, right? There is no option in Capistrano version 2 to say please don't use network. Really, in version 3 there is some sort of discussion, but I don't think Symfony will feed Capistrano version 3 in any time. It's yeah, long story. So
I think we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll move on to the next.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.